Hi everyone, this is Christina Atkinson doing my fourth speech for the speech class. This is my audience. Hello audience.
Hi.
And cameraman James. Alright, thank you all for coming. Businesses often say that customer service is their competitive edge. Now imagine every time you went to your local bank's branch, you got terrible service by some tall, scary woman. You probably wouldn't want to go back to that branch, or you might even change banks. And the reason why is because there's competition offered between the different businesses. Even though we allow ourselves to have competition in businesses and we don't allow businesses to keep failing, we seem to not do that with our schools. We hear in the news all the time about schools not performing and we allow them to fail year after year after year. Education is one of our most important commodities, so why aren't we investing in education like we would in businesses? From the evidence I have gathered from my research, I found out that charter schools are a great way to help improve the education situation in America. Charter schools benefit students, especially low-income students, because they are more accountable than public schools. They offer competition to public schools, and they are usually more innovative in their teaching methods. First, let's examine the major problems of education in the U.S. Everyone knows that, unfortunately, we're behind most developed countries in terms of our test scores. For example, in 2003, according to Education Week Journal, 39% of students scored a proficient level on their English test in the 4th grade. Only 39% of students. But what's worse is there's an achievement gap between minorities and Caucasians. Even though 39% of white students performed at the proficient level, only 12% of black students and 14% of Hispanics did the same. So why do you guys think there's such a big achievement gap between the two races?
Who knows?
Well, obviously a lot of minorities usually come from low-income backgrounds, so that really puts them at a disadvantage. An analysis, 1999 and 2000, of schools and staffing surveys show that of course, minorities tend to go to lower-funded schools, so they don't get the highest quality teachers. There are also disparities that affect them throughout their lives, because a lot of minorities don't graduate at the same rate as white students. Even though 72% of white students will graduate high school, only about half of black students and Hispanic students will do the same. And according to Education Week Journal, once again, about 30 white students out of every 100, about 30 out of every 100 white kindergartners will graduate from college, whereas only half of that will be the same for black students. The cause of this problem, like I mentioned, is underfunding of schools. But it's not just the lack of funds. It's when schools start performing low, they get into the cycle of low motivation and they're not going to do better. In fact, Education Week Journal pointed out that the teachers at underfunded schools tend to have low morale, which is then passed on to the students. It's kind of a self-defeating cycle. Okay? Like I said, it's not just money, it's really an attitude problem. If the teachers aren't working in favorable conditions, then they're not going to push their students to do better. So the solution that I'll present is that the government needs to encourage the establishment of charter schools and to make parents more aware that it's even an option. So why shouldn't we just invest money in the public schools if funding's the problem? You have an idea? Like, what makes charter schools different? Does anyone know what a charter school is exactly?
Not really.
Okay, that's cool, because I'm going to teach you what a charter school is. A charter school is either an elementary or secondary school that is publicly funded, so it's not a private school. However, it doesn't have the same state mandates as a public school. So they don't have, like in Virginia, we have the standards of learning curriculum. Charter schools don't have to follow that. So that's the main difference. Charter schools are established independently. It's kind of like FedEx is independent of the United States Postal Service. That's an analogy to think of. Since charter schools are open by choice, there's a whole lot more motivation to actually make them succeed, as I will show. There's about 1 million students in the United States that attend charter schools, according to uscharterschools.org. And a lot of them are founded by teachers and parents. It's really a grassroots movement because they feel restricted by current state requirements. The two principles that guide the charter schools, like I said, are autonomy. They want to be independent from state restrictions, and that they are held accountable for their achievements. They won't have their charter renewed if the students don't perform well. So unlike public schools where students can continue failing and not performing well for years and years, a charter school has been open for 5 years and the students aren't doing well, they'll close the school. So teachers have their jobs literally at stake at charter schools. In fact, about 12% of the charter schools that have been open have been closed because they weren't performing to the standards they needed to be performing at. So accountability, like I was saying, is a huge issue. If the charter schools don't have high performance rates, then they're not going to succeed. And of course, charter schools provide healthy competition for public schools in the area. What makes the main difference between how FedEx operates and how the United States Postal Service operates? Have any ideas? Or what makes them better?
FedEx has to make a profit.
It wants to make a profit, right. And because the United States Postal Service doesn't really care about making a profit, there's not motivation. So as you see, motivation is a big factor into wanting to make something succeed. Charter schools want to succeed because they want to keep their charter, whereas public schools don't have that worry. So it creates the competition necessary to do even better. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, in 2004, a study showed that having charter schools in an area does increase the competition and actually makes the public schools perform better as well, because they want to attract students and not lose students to the charter school. And some people suggest that maybe we just need to open more schools and lower the teacher-to-student ratio, but actually the same studies show that that's not good enough, because the improvement level of having charter schools is actually 2 to 5 times greater than just lowering the level. So as I showed, competition does make a very important factor. Also, charter schools have innovative methods that a lot of public schools don't use. Like they try innovative methods for assessing and for behavior. According to Education Leadership article by Rick Stiggins, which, like I said, since public schools are restricted by things like the standards of learning, then they can't try new innovative things like the charter schools can. In a 2000 paper by Caroline Hexby, one showed that students are doing much better in all areas of reading and math in charter schools versus public schools. Also, it's more available to these low-income students. They're not tracked going to their poorly funded schools because they can use the voucher system to get access to these better charter schools. People aren't participating as much because, like we showed in the audience, people don't know about charter schools. So it's really the government's job to teach people that there are an option. As you can see, there are many benefits to charter schools, and because of the accountability factor, allowing for competition, and innovative teaching methods. And I will end with one profile of a charter school from uscharterschools.org. It's the Community of Peace Academy in St. Paul, Minnesota, where 75% are using English as a second language, and 80% of the students have free or reduced lunch. There's game problems in the area, so the school focused on improving behavior and grades. The math improvement made the school one of the top-ranked 20 schools in all the state, and 65% passed the reading test, which is amazing because most of them English was their second language. So as you can see, charter schools do benefit low-income students. Thank you for attending my speech. What was it?
A speech.